Warsaw has two subway lines. That's what every map will tell you. The first opened in 1995, the second in 2015. Clean, functional, well documented. But beneath those sleek modern lines, beneath the concrete of a city rebuilt after total destruction, there are older paths. Paths that were started but never finished, or so they say. In the 1950s, during the height of Soviet influence in Eastern Europe, the Polish government began a project known only by its internal code name, Project Północny, the Northern Project. Officially, it was listed as an urban modernization initiative. In reality, it was something far more opaque, an underground transport system built not for the people, but for the party. Construction began quietly beneath Warsaw's northern districts, beneath streets flattened by World War II bombings. Soviet engineers oversaw the design. Polish workers were sworn to secrecy, no public announcement, no permits. The system was never meant to be revealed. Then it stopped. By 1962, the project had vanished from all official records. Funding disappeared. The engineers left. The tunnels, if they were ever truly finished, were sealed, forgotten, absorbed by the ever-growing city above. But they didn't disappear. For decades, rumors have persisted of strange vibrations beneath Warsaw's Muranów neighborhood, of access doors inside maintenance tunnels that lead nowhere, or rather, lead to somewhere no one wants to admit exists. Former workers, now elderly, speak in hushed voices about a third line, not visible on any map. No signs, no passengers, only silence. In 2007, a Polish journalist named Marta Kulesza received an anonymous package. Inside was a blueprint, yellowed paper, Soviet annotations. It showed a tunnel, wide, curved, reinforced, running parallel to the official Line 1. But there was no station. Just a long corridor ending in a node labeled Komora 17, Chamber 17. She cross-referenced it with every urban plan she could find. There was nothing, no evidence that anything had ever been constructed in that zone until she went there. Using the blueprints, she traced the location to a derelict building behind the Gdansk station, abandoned since the late 80s. Inside, she found a stairwell welded shut with iron bars. When she showed her findings to the local transit authority, they dismissed it as old maintenance space. But within a week, the building was demolished, the lot cleared. No investigation. She published her story. Her editor was fired. The article was pulled from archives 2 months later. But copies remain, and so does the interest. Urban explorers, Poland's own Exploratorzy Podziemi, have spent years chasing leads from that article. In 2012, one group posted photos from an unauthorized descent beneath a service shaft near Plac Wilsona. What they found was not on any map, a tiled corridor, unlit, partially flooded, leading to a metal door with Soviet markings. Above the door, etched in concrete, were the letters P3. They didn't go inside. A motion detector started buzzing. They ran. The photos were online for 2 days before being taken down. What makes all of this even stranger is the nature of Soviet architecture. It was rarely just functional. It was symbolic, coded, paranoid. Soviet doctrine believed in deep defense, layers of fallback options, hidden channels of escape, bunkers within bunkers. Warsaw, as a frontline satellite, was full of them. And the metro was part of the plan. Multiple declassified documents from the Cold War suggest that Warsaw was to become a node in the Eastern Bloc, S underground command structure, a series of tunnels stretching from Berlin to Minsk. The metro wasn't transportation, it was protection, it was secrecy, it was power buried in concrete, but something happened. According to Polish military historians, Project Północny was shut down due to logistical concerns. But some believe that's a cover, that the tunnel system was completed, or nearly completed, and then hidden, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too well. Imagine a space beneath the city, unknown even to most officials. A corridor built to move classified personnel, nuclear documents, even weapons, without ever surfacing. A ghost metro line, sealed and untouched since the 1960s. What's more chilling? In 2019, a whistleblower from Warsaw's Municipal Engineering Department admitted that during a subway expansion review, ground scans detected unregistered cavities beneath Line 1, large enough to fit trains. When asked why they weren't investigated, he said, "Because someone told us not to." Who? He wouldn't say. But he did say this: "There are doors down there we didn't install." Warsaw was meant to be watched. That's what the Soviets wanted. A showcase of order rebuilt after chaos. But beneath that order, they designed confusion. Below the sidewalks, the plazas, and the monuments, they carved out shadows. Deliberately undocumented, deliberately deniable. The metro was only the beginning. In the 1980s, a defector from the Warsaw Pact, known only as VK, passed documents to French intelligence. Among them were fragments of infrastructure plans, highly technical, written in Russian and Polish. One diagram stood out. It depicted a multi-level subterranean hub near the Palace of Culture, and science connecting 3 corridors, one marked L1, Line 1, another unmarked, and the third labeled Specjalna Trasa, special route. No trace of that third line exists in Warsaw's Transit Authority records. None. But the Palace of Culture itself holds clues. The building, a gift from Stalin, was constructed with more than 3,000 rooms, many of them sealed. Several subterranean levels remain off-limits to this day. In 1996, an electrical contractor performing upgrades to the building S lower levels discovered an access shaft behind a crumbling wall. It led down, deeper than the building's known foundation. He was told to stop. The shaft was sealed. He wasn't called back. In a 2020 interview with a Polish history podcast, he described what he saw: a concrete ramp lined with rails, descending at an angle inconsistent with any public infrastructure he'd seen. It wasn't built for maintenance, he said. It was built for movement. Movement of what? He doesn't know, but we might. He doesn't. According to Cold War scholars, the Soviet Union maintained a network of emergency evacuation routes and hidden facilities throughout Eastern Bloc capitals. In Moscow, these were known as Metro 2, a shadow subway built parallel to the public one. In Berlin, similar corridors existed beneath East German ministries. Warsaw, strategically central, was not excluded. The logic was simple. If war broke out, party leadership would need fast, hidden transit to shelters or exit points. The metro tunnels were ideal, stable, reinforced, and when controlled, invisible to civilians. But in Warsaw, the Ghost Metro was never completed publicly. It never appeared on transit plans, and no official ceremony ever marked its existence. Why? Because unlike other cities, Warsaw's tunnels weren't just evacuation routes, they were also meant to be control systems. Reports from Polish archives describe experiments in subterranean broadcasting, low-frequency signals tested in tunnel environments, potentially for communication or, more disturbingly, behavioral influence. One declassified memo from 1974 refers to Project Echo, a psychoacoustic study of confined environments. The listed location, Sub-T Level 3 Northern Corridor. No address, no city, but urban explorers in Warsaw Żoliborz district, the suspected site of Komora 17, have documented strange acoustic anomalies while exploring sealed maintenance hatches. Sudden feedback, static bursts, and in one case what sounded like voices recorded at a slowed frequency. The devices used were basic. The recordings are difficult to analyze, but the experiences are consistent. And then there's the wall. Several explorers on separate occasions have encountered what they describe as a room that shouldn't be there. Located beneath a ventilation shaft between two known metro stops, the room is circular, metallic, and entirely silent. No echoes, no reverberation, as if sound is absorbed. On the floor, a rusted panel welded shut. No handles, no hinges. One explorer, using a heat sensor, reported a faint warmth coming from beneath the panel, warmer than the surrounding tunnel. And yet, the surface was bone dry. No explanation was offered. The footage from his helmet camera cut out 5 minutes later. He was unharmed but shaken. He has never returned underground. Why would there be warmth beneath a sealed tunnel? Why would a city, reconstructed from ruins, spend resources building rooms it never uses? Here's one theory. They weren't building for civilians. They were building for survival, for surveillance, and maybe even for experimentation. Recent leaks from within the Polish Ministry of Infrastructure confirm that several city expansion projects have been halted due to unexplained subsoil interference. The reports are vague, but engineers speaking anonymously say the interference isn't geological. It's architectural. Structures, old ones, inaccessible, reinforced, and not consistent with any known phase of Warsaw's modern development. What does that mean? It means someone built them, but not for us. By the 1980s, Warsaw had become a city of layers, not just architecturally, but psychologically. Above ground, modern socialism. Below ground, something else. The Ghost Metro wasn't simply abandoned. It was hidden, sealed by design. And everything points to one conclusion. It was never intended to serve passengers. It was built to serve power. In 1983, during martial law, a former state engineer known as Bartosz Z submitted an anonymous report to a dissident newsletter. It described an unauthorized underground chamber below the Polytechnica campus, accessible only through a tunnel beneath the old rector's building. He claimed the room was not marked on any university plans, but contained military-grade ventilation, reinforced blast doors, and a monitoring system wired into the city's power grid. He called it Station Zero. Of course, the report was dismissed as conspiracy, but years later, after the fall of communism, blueprints were uncovered in university archives showing a lower mechanical room directly beneath the same structure. The room was labeled PZU-0. The access tunnel had been bricked off. In 2014, two urban explorers, operating under the name Głębokie Cienie, Deep Shadows, claimed they reached the tunnel via storm drain access after weeks of mapping. What they filmed shook the community. The video, posted briefly on a Polish file-sharing site, showed a concrete hallway lined with rusted conduit, Soviet signage, and finally, a locked vault door with the word Zamknięte, closed, painted in red. A muffled humming could be heard behind it. 2 days later, their channel disappeared. Their identities were never confirmed. But the footage was archived, and its authenticity has never been debunked. Warsaw's city government still denies the existence of any ghost infrastructure. But internal memos obtained in a 2022 data leak show repeated references to subterranean anomalies WZ4, WZT5, and WZT7, all requiring urgent structural review. These correspond almost perfectly to zones suspected by explorers, Wola, Żoliborz, and the eastern edge of Praga. In each case, construction permits were suspended, no explanations offered, projects delayed indefinitely. And still, the silence grows louder. One particularly disturbing discovery occurred in 2020. A civil engineering student named Carol J. was conducting seismic vibration tests in central Warsaw. His equipment picked up subtle, consistent patterns of reverberation beneath a disused parking garage near the National Library. Curious, he returned at night with thermal imaging gear. What he found was a heat signature in the shape of a corridor running east to west beneath layers of reinforced soil. The corridor wasn't connected to any known tunnel. He submitted the data. Weeks passed. Then he received a message from a blocked number. "Do not return to the site. You've seen enough." He never did, but his data leaked. And it confirms what many already believe. The Ghost Metro is not a myth. It is infrastructure, forgotten by design, preserved by fear. Poland's security services, both past and present, have a long history of burying what they don't want found. Files go missing, whistleblowers vanish from public view, and Warsaw itself, so often the backdrop of historical trauma, has become the perfect camouflage. But there are cracks. In basements across the city, janitors find old doors bolted shut. Mechanics hear echoes in the pipes. Dogs refuse to walk near certain storm grates. Residents of old Soviet buildings tell stories, always in whispers, of hearing movement under their floors. Not plumbing, not rodents, something larger, slower, deliberate. Many of the buildings constructed between 1950 and 1975 have what are called technical basements, service floors sealed during renovation. Their purpose has never been clearly defined. Some are flooded, others were filled with concrete, a few were never accessed at all. And what connects them all? Every one of them was located along the proposed route of the original special line, the hidden path documented in the Soviet-era blueprints obtained by French intelligence. The route that doesn't exist, but keeps showing up. What did the Soviets intend to transport through these tunnels? Some say nuclear weapons, others say people, not passengers but prisoners, dissidents, scientists, military defectors, individuals the party wanted gone but not dead. Hidden assets stored beneath the capital. There is no proof, but there are signs. In a storage room beneath the Wilanovska station, an old metal crate was discovered in 2017. Its markings were Cyrillic. Inside, rusted electronics, magnetic tape reels, and a logbook. Most of it was unreadable, but one phrase repeated in the notes, "Punkt zapasowy," backup point. No location was listed, but the implication was clear. If everything failed above, something below would continue. Warsaw has changed. New towers rise where old ruins once stood, streets are busier, transit is modern. The past feels distant, but it's still there. Not in museums, not in textbooks. It lives underground, in places you can't visit, doors you'll never see, and names you'll never find on any document. Because some truths were built never to be known. In 2021, during a routine inspection beneath the Świętokrzyska transfer station, engineers found what they described as structural interference. It wasn't collapse, it wasn't age, it was a wall, smooth, steel-reinforced, curved, that wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't part of the metro, and it didn't match any construction phase recorded since the station was built. They drilled into it. Beyond the wall was a void, a sealed chamber. The report was submitted. 3 days later, the opening was filled with concrete, permanently. No photos, no scans, no explanation. When asked for comment, the Ministry of Infrastructure said only, "We found nothing of significance, but someone found it significant enough to bury." Journalists attempted to investigate. Tomasz W. claimed he had sources inside the Transit Commission who described a network of legacy zones. His words, not theirs. Areas not maintained, not monitored, but still drawing electrical current. Still sealed, still warm. He was working on a documentary. It was never released. His last post online was one sentence: "There's movement down there." And then, nothing. But his footage exists, leaked by a colleague. It shows maps with hand-drawn corrections, access codes circled in red, blueprints stamped with Soviet insignias, and audio, a low rhythmic sound captured beneath a station corridor. At first it sounds like machinery, but it's not regular. It pulses, fades, returns like breathing. More disturbing, the footage ends with him whispering into the mic. This wasn't abandoned, it was waiting. What does that mean? Here's what we know. The Soviets didn't build temporary systems. They built for control, for endurance. Their hidden infrastructure, from Russia to Berlin, was designed to outlast regimes. If the world above fell, the systems below would persist. Warsaw, central to their defense line, would never have been left exposed. So what if the tunnels were completed? What if Project Północny wasn't shut down, but instead activated under deeper authority? It would explain the consistent reports of sealed spaces, the unaccounted-for power draw, the strange acoustics, the places where maps don't match, the corridors no one dares to re-enter, and it would explain the fear. Not public fear, official fear. The fear of admitting that there is something beneath this city that no one controls anymore. Something built by a system that no longer exists, but whose architecture remains. Quiet, unseen, functioning. Because if you build a metro line, but never announce it, if you power a tunnel, but never open the door, if you carve out chambers, but never fill them, what are they for? Why are they still warm? Why do they echo? In 2022, a tourist group reported hearing vibrations beneath their feet near Plac Bankowy. Their guide laughed it off. "Old pipes," he said. But a nearby security guard, older, quiet, pulled one of them aside and said only this: "The city has two faces, one for you, one for those who were never meant to leave." A throwaway line, a metaphor, or something deeper. Warsaw is a city of stories, resistance, rebirth. But the most dangerous stories are the ones that never made it to the surface, the ones trapped in stone, steel, and silence. The ones that rattle the rails late at night, even when no train is scheduled. Because perhaps the Ghost Metro of Warsaw isn't haunted by spirits. It's haunted by intent, by a blueprint so deeply buried that even democracy didn't dig it out. So next time you stand on a platform and feel the air shift, ask yourself, what else is running through these tunnels? And more importantly, what if it never stopped?